Fighting is now happening in Kiev. On the second day of the Russian invasion, Ukraine's capital is being attacked on the ground. We have live pictures for you this morning as we begin this Friday in Kiev. Special coverage for you again all morning long. Ukraine's defense ministry urging Ukrainians to prepare for a desperate defense, telling them on social media to make Molotov cocktails. An official with Ukraine's Interior Ministry says Russian tanks and other armored vehicles are moving on the capital now from both the northeast and the northwest. Associated Press reports gunfire is being heard in neighborhoods around the government buildings. Other cities are also coming under attack. We'll hear about that from our Margaret Evans in just a moment, live in the capital. But first, the latest video this morning. This is video showing Russian military vehicles moving down a road in a northern part of the Ukrainian capital. Now, you can see this is taken through a window. One of the vehicles moves to cut off traffic. It's short, so let's repeat it for you. This is video being widely shared on social media. We're taking it from an official account. BBC News is confirming the location, and other social media posts are sharing unconfirmed video of Russian forces in other parts of Kiev. The attack following another night of airstrikes for people in the city. This is video from Ukraine's state emergency service showing an apartment building on fire. Ukraine is accusing Russia of deliberately targeting civilians, saying at least 33 civilian sites have been hit. In an address earlier this morning, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appears to single out the United States in a call for countries to do more to stop Russia.
This morning, we are defending our country alone. Just like yesterday, the most powerful country in the world looked on from a distance. Russia was hit with sanctions yesterday, but these are not enough to get these foreign troops off our soil. Only through solidarity and determination can this be achieved.
The Ukrainian president, as he spoke to the people of his nation. Now, there is our Margaret Evans, who leads our CBC News team in Kiev. She is in her hotel room overlooking the downtown. And Margaret, if we would, in terms of what is happening right now, I was saying Russian forces are reported just kilometers from the National Parliament and from where you are. What is the latest this Friday?
Well, Heather, we've heard a couple of explosions in the distance, but when that's not happening or when the air raid sirens are going and you listen, this city is silent. Earlier, we did have kind of a constant sounding of those air raid warnings. People spent the night in shelters, if they had them, basements, garages. We've talked about the metro stations and people going down there. There's a real sense of confusion and not knowing what's going to happen. The other thing that's happening that's a little bit different is you're starting to see shops actually boarding themselves up. Our hotel, for example, is boarding the glass doors at the front, and that is people preparing, fearful that Russian troops may indeed soon be in the very heart of the capital. So that's the latest on the ground. We're a little bit hemmed in here, the view from my hotel room window.
So, Margaret, again, in Ukraine, under martial law, we had the word from President Zelensky calling for conscripts, calling for reservists, any and all recruits to serve, to help for the Ukrainian army, banning men 18 to 60 from leaving the country. Bring us up to date on the Ukrainian response.
Well, I think that, what you've just reported basically points to the increased pressure that the government is under, of course, not just the Ukrainian military. We had reservists called up. We also had legislation making it legal for anybody in this country to have a firearm to defend themselves. In the early hours of the morning, we saw the president issuing this mobilization order, making it illegal now for men between 18 and 60, as you've said, leave the country. And now they're saying anyone over 60, if they want to fight, they're welcome to fight. I mean, I think we'll have to wait and see how this plays out on the borders, because so many people are still leaving the city, leaving other cities, trying to get mainly to the western border to cross over into Poland. But there are lots of people staying as well. And the concern right now, the focus in terms of what people are talking about, what might be about to happen here, people are very much taking their lead from the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who has been saying yesterday on American television that the Americans believe that what is going to happen is that the Russian troops closing in on Kiev are going to try to basically take out the leadership, take out the presidency here, and replace it with a pro-Russian regime. That's the state of play. You know, back in 2014, there was a pro-Russian president in place. And when that president decided to turn away from the European Union and an association agreement in favor of closer ties with Russia, that's when we saw the Maidan protests. And that gives you a sense of just where this country, many people want to go. And it is not back to Moscow. It is to the west. But increasingly people here say they feel isolated. They've desired to turn west all of these years. And now there's a sense of an abandonment, despite all of the military hardware and the assistance that has come in. What they really would like to see is people fighting on the ground. And though I should mention that people here do also say how appreciative they are of the Ukrainian community abroad, and specifically they do mention the Canadian Ukrainian community in terms of the support, the assistance that they've actually been sending here to Ukraine.
Margaret, thank you very much. Our first conversation this morning will be back to you for updates as those Russian forces move ever closer. Now, let's bring you live images out of Moscow. And in that city and across the country, in fact, there were anti-war protests. Hundreds of people arrested for protesting against the moves by their president, Vladimir Putin. Briar Stewart, our Moscow correspondent, is on the Russian side of this fight. She's in Rostov-on-Don this morning. With these Russian forces now nearing the Ukrainian capital, Briar this morning reporting on how the Kremlin is today justifying the Russian invasion.
As Russian forces are in Ukraine's capital this morning, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov again tried to convince the Russian public that Russia had no choice but to launch this attack. He had said that this was a whole plan to try to liberate Ukraine from oppression. Now, these are the statements that we've been hearing from the Kremlin and echoed on state media in recent days. And in fact, as Ukraine has been under attack by missile strikes and by heavy equipment rolling in with troops, President Vladimir Putin met with the business community yesterday, some of the richest people in Russia, echoing what he's been saying before, that Russia had no choice to do this, that the Ukrainian military threat was just so great. He also tried to assure them that Russia was not going to be sealed off behind some kind of iron economic curtain with the sanctions. And we have seen Russia start to hit back at some of the sanctions that have been levied. This morning, it was announced that British airlines are not going to be able to land in Russia or to pass over it. And that's quite significant when you think about the size of Russia and the fact that it is, a key airspace to transit to Asia. In terms of the Russian military operation, there is an airbase about 3 hours north of here. Ukrainian officials announced this morning that they had targeted it in a strike and that several aircraft were damaged or destroyed. We haven't been able to confirm that, but there is video circulating online of a large explosion. And while the troops and equipment in this area where I am in Rostov-on-Don have appeared to have all entered Ukraine, we know that there are still tens of thousands of troops on the border in the north near Belarus and in the southwest near Crimea, and they are all camped out, and Russia anticipates in deploying them as this continues. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Rostov-on-Don, Russia.